Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Goon Squad, and welcome back to yet another edition of the Football Goons podcast. Wherever you are, whenever it is, we're thrilled to death you've decided to spend a little time with us as we continue talking about the greatest game on earth, and this week, really start getting into our fantasy football preparation for 2017. I know I'm excited. I don't know about you guys.
Yes.
If you are on iTunes, SoundCloud, make sure you leave us a review. Help us climb the charts. Our assault on the industry is coming hard. We're ready for it to take over. And we'd also like to give a shout out to those of you tuning in live on YouTube, where we carve out some time to spend with the squad every Sunday night at 9:30. This pod is tailor-made for you guys, as this week we're answering submitted questions from Facebook, from Twitter, from word of mouth, that people have asked us about specific players, specific strategies as we enter this fantasy football season. So as we're going through, if you have a comment or a question about a topic we're on, or maybe one of your own, go ahead and comment on the YouTube page, and we'll address that here on air live. So before we get kicked off, guys, how's the week going? Everybody ready to go here?
I mean, my week has been pretty crappy. I've spent my entire week building a fence around my house.
Nice.
And as I'm building it and my kids are coming out, they just want to go outside the fence. That's all they want to do. And I'm thinking, I'm to the point now, I'm like, I don't even really care if they wander off or whatever. I just don't want to lose my tax credits for them. That's just where I'm at. That's the kind of week I'm having. I just don't want to lose my tax credits. So I'm just hoping to keep them in there.
You're not done with that fence yet?
Dude, if you ask me that one more time, I'm going to punch you right in your face.
I just keep asking Deal that question over and over again because I had a fence put up last year, but I'm way too lazy to do it myself. So I paid a guy who was out there like hand digging these posts like before the frost even came off the ground. I mean, this guy machined it out in like 3 days for me, gave me just a crazy good price. So I just keep bragging on it basically and picking on Deal. But, you know, I'm feeling your pain as someone who doesn't even like home improvement projects. So
yeah, and I do, but I'm done. I'm done now.
It's a big project indeed. All right, guys, so let's get this thing kicked off. Let's get into some of our questions from this week. We had 8 of them that we want to talk about here. Again, we'll increase that if anybody live gives us another one, but we're ranging all over the place, different positions. I'm excited about how spread apart these questions are. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this thing off at running back. That might matter a little bit to your season. There are at least 1, 2, 3 of us who believe in that. I think we're trying to get Rocco there. We'll get him. I think he's there this year. I don't know. So the first question we have here is from Matt. From Jeff in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He wants to know, this is a negative Nancy guy here, which top 10 consensus running back is most likely to disappoint this season? So our consensus top 10 is pretty straightforward. We've got David Johnson, Lev Bell, and Zeke Elliott at the top 3. Then our next tier, we're talking about LaShawn McCoy, Melvin Gordon, Jordan Howard, Devonta Freeman, Leonard Fournette, Jay Ajayi, and Todd Gurley. Of those names listed, guys, I mean, those are all absolutely first 2-round picks at worst. Who's going to let us down this year?
I'll start us off here just because we may have a difference of opinion. The guy that I think most scares me in this group is probably like one of my favorites in the group, and that's Freeman, just because of the timeshare situation. As we've seen Coleman get better and better and better, the feeling there is, obviously to want to get Coleman more involved without trying to take away from Freeman's carries, but it's going to happen slightly. And then the other thing that really scares the life out of me is actually not fantasy related, but contract related. If things start to progress the way they have been, and it looks like they're not going to get a deal done, they may even give Coleman a bigger load because he might kind of be there starting back in 2018. You know what I mean? So it just from the standpoint of, the timeshare, he's the only one in the top 10 that has like a legitimate timeshare. And then on top of it, not really knowing how that timeshare is going to play itself out. like I said, I'll draft Devontae Freeman. Absolutely, I love him. He's, like I said, he's one of my favorite backs in this top 10 group. But at the same time, it would not surprise me to see a dip from his production from 2016.
Yeah, just a quick point on what you're saying there. I'm not going with Freeman, but I feel like that situation I did think about because that has the most like Wally Pipp, Lou Gehrig feel to it because Coleman is so good that if something did happen to Freeman and he missed a couple weeks and Atlanta decided like, all right, Coleman's running away with this thing, let's play the hot hand, you know, you could kind of get burned in that aspect. I try not to worry about that too much, but I'm actually going to go with a guy who I have done nothing but gush about to this point. And I do this a lot where I talk somebody up like crazy and then I pump the brakes. It's not who you're thinking, Rock.
Oh.
It is Jordan Howard, who is our number 6 overall guy as a group here. I have him at exactly number 6 personally. We have him there collectively. The only reason I'm a little bit scared about him, and I still don't think I'd hesitate to take him, but doesn't the Bears offense overall like feel almost like the Todd Gurley situation of last year?
Exactly what I was going to say.
I like their wide receivers more, obviously, but I mean, Cam Meredith, like still an unknown. Kevin White, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen first. Kevin White plays like 10 to 12 games or Deal finishes his fence. I have no idea.
I'm gonna kill you.
I have no idea at this point. And the quarterback situation obviously leaves a little something to be desired there. So it feels like a situation where you could put 8 in the box comfortably just about every snap. I don't know. I don't want to compare it too much to that Rams situation, but it has that eerie feeling to it.
The huge difference for me with Gurley in 16 and Howard here in 17 is the Bears line is legit.
Right.
So, you know, I hear you with the weapons and the quarterback situation. You're absolutely right. But the big difference here is a lot of Howard's production last year came because the line was mauling people. And
right.
It's still an excellent offensive line. So I'm not quite as concerned. You know, I do get the parallels to an extent, but just because I love that Bears offensive line. That's actually what's attracting me to Howard quite a bit. Actually, if I'm late in first rounds, I'm pretty interested in him.
Is that a hint, Miles? Is that a wink, wink?
You know, at this point, I've given you guys so many winks and hints, and I you know, more than any other year, I legitimately still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I just, I don't know.
Well,
like
at least you're honest, I guess.
I'm drafting 7th, and I have like 13 players I'm considering at 7. So, you know, I'm just not real sure which of those. My guy, while I'm speaking, my guy's actually Todd Gurley. I struggle with him still being in the top 10. I personally do have him 10th because I want to see how some of these younger players, those situations shake out with, you know, Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. I want to see how guys like Blunt and Peterson and Lynch really work out with their new teams as the preseason goes on. I could absolutely see myself actually entering the draft with Todd Gurley down at 15, 16. They didn't do enough for me to improve what was a disaster last year. I know they brought in Andrew Whitworth, which is definitely a help. And, of course, you know, Jared Goff looks amazing because every player looks amazing here in June. But I just, for me, as a Georgia fan, like there's no one I want to do better than Todd Gurley, and I won't touch him. So he's my disappointment.
Yeah, I actually agreed with Rocco on this one. I said Devontae Freeman. Yeah, he's our 7. I have him 7th, but for me, I really like the guys. Will I be shocked if Bell gets injured or Shady gets injured? Of course not. But outside of injury, I think Freeman. I'm sorry. I think Freeman. I would be least shocked if he moved outside the top 10 or at least moved down from 7. So was a disappointment from where you drafted him at. The biggest thing that scares me is that timeshare and how good Coleman really is as a running back. So I won't be shocked if, you know, we had already talked about that they have that feeling of could this be a situation where they move on from from Freeman and move to Coleman being their number one back, and we could begin to see that this year. So I am a little bit afraid of that for him.
I like something that South said earlier. I actually can't even remember if it was on air or not, but you had said a week or two ago that the Falcons were really playing with Coleman more as a slot receiver to increase his touches.
Yep.
And what that screams to me is, listen, these are two of the best 4 or 5 players on our entire roster, and we have to figure out a way to get them both on the field.
Yeah, at the same time.
So while, yeah, that could still impact Freeman's touches, he was a fantasy stud last year, and it wasn't because he was a heavy workload guy. He just does work with what they give him.
Right.
So I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you guys, but I will say I won't hesitate to scoop him up.
Yeah, I just
if the opportunity's right.
To your point on that too, and I do agree with some of the concern there, but among running backs who gave you the most return fantasy point wise per touch last year, I'd have to go back and look at it again. But those two backs in Atlanta were both in the top 5.
Yeah.
So the amount of touches really wasn't that relevant, because anytime they did touch it, there was home run potential there.
I do want to. Go ahead, Moss.
There's always still just that they play for Atlanta, so it's a great offense.
Yeah,
which benefits both guys in multiple ways, because number one, when the touches are there, guys are blocking hard. Defenses are scared of Julio, so they're not stacking boxes. So that helps you both in running and in the short passing patterns. They're both excellent receivers, so PPR, that gives them a boost. And listen, you're a good offense. I've said this about the Saints. There's just more snaps to go around. You know, a timeshare in Atlanta might be more valuable than being the stud and for the Jets. You know, I mean,
why? Why?
Because they're the worst team in the league, man.
You could have said any team there.
The 49ers, then. I don't know what to tell you.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking for. I know we said we were going to limit this to one per person, but I do kind of want to throw out Leonard Fournette's name here as well. I think that the guy could be an absolute stud, but two things are kind of going against him right now. One, it's Jacksonville, and two, he's a rookie, so we don't even have numbers to go on from last year. We all think the world of him, and we think that he was amazing talent in college, and think that can translate very well to the pro game, because he's just a grown man out there. But at the same time, Jacksonville rookie, you don't know what to expect. So that's another name that I would keep my eye on.
Plus, Yeldon is a pretty good running back. So
stop it.
I just think that's a Mark Ingram situation, though. They don't like him even some.
Yeah. I agree, but
anyways,
he's still there.
Okay. So a couple answers for you, Jeff. Basically, get a top 3 pick or be scared.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Top 5.
Right. All right, so we're going to keep it rolling here with the running back discussion. We do have a question submitted here. This is Matt from Hazleton. This one's actually as much about draft strategy as it is actual players. So Matt asks us, with so many running backs in a committee approach towards that mid-teen ranking system, do you still take those over kind of a second-tier receiver like a Michael Thomas or a Dez Bryant if you have to make that choice? So I'm thinking he's saying running back in the first, I get to the second round and Michael Thomas is sitting there, or do I take a guy whose situation I'm unsure of? So what do you guys think? What are you doing in the second, maybe even third round here?
Well, I know what Deal's doing, which is taking a running back.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I say, once again, stick to your own rankings. I mean, this is why it's important to do your own rankings, guys. If you don't already do them, you can use ours, which be great for you. But it's important to have your own rankings, because you get to that second tier, and I understand that scenario as well as anybody. Especially because I draft 8-8, so I'm going to go 8-9, and then my next 2 picks are going to be after everybody else has picked up 2 more players. Right. So, it comes with a very dangerous situation of you either have to be sure that the guy you're taking that's in a committee is going to be worth it. I think his example of Michael Thomas and Dez Bryant might be bad examples. I think, those are both like true number 1 wide receivers on their team at this point. But I do get the question where you start looking at, running back by committee or, a 10 to 15 spot wide receiver. Look around you too. Like, pay attention to the draft. Look what other guys have taken. I know I'm in a league with Deal. Deal's going to take a running back. If that means that I might have the possibility of leaving him with two worse wide receivers, for his next two picks, you just got to play it out and see how the draft is falling to you. But stick to your own rankings and stick to your gut.
Right.
Yeah, your settings are going to be just as important as anything else in this too. If you're in a situation where you're looking at PPR type scoring and you're going to have to make a decision between maybe like DeAndre Hopkins or take a chance on all of the upside of an Adrian Peterson, but not really knowing what the situation is with that committee approach, then I actually might lead toward Hopkins in that situation if you have them ranked pretty similarly. So I also am of the belief that there are some guys at the running back position that you're going to be able to scoop up later on who are going to be – they're going to have upside that can get you the similar production as a guy like Peterson, as a little bit more of an unknown in Dalvin Cook in the Minnesota situation there. So I don't know. I think I would actually jump on board with a wide receiver if I liked them enough, because you're going to have guys later on. Maybe you could steal a Gillislee. You could steal an Isaiah Crowell. Maybe not so much anymore, but you could have a couple weeks ago stolen a Joe Mixon. I think I'd probably go with the wide receiver, actually, as crazy as it might seem.
It is crazy. I just can't. I can't even.
I just I can, and we're thinking the same thing. Like, I'm in a lot of leagues, and the teams that do well are the teams that have running backs. It's just write it down. I'm in leagues that start 2 quarterbacks. I'm in a league that starts 3 quarterbacks. Guess who wins? The guys who draft the running backs, not the guys who draft the quarterbacks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's such a – listen, you might miss. You know what I mean? Like, everybody we slam on Rock for taking him first overall, but Todd Gurley went in the first round of every single fantasy league last year that there was.
Yep.
And you're going to miss, and that wasn't your fault leading up to the draft. Nobody could have predicted that. But I'm taking my chances with that because I know to be a championship team, I need to be solid at running back. Yep. And, South, I'm with you, and I was just joking before that I don't know what I'm doing at 7. And it's because for the first time in my fantasy career, I'm really high on a lot of those late teens, 20 ranked running backs. Like, I think you can absolutely win a league with 3 guys ranked in the 20s this year. But number 1, I better be right. But more importantly, number 2, listen, I would love to have a Gillislee, Crowell, LeGarrette Blount, 2 running backs in a flex. I'd go nuts for it. But I can't guarantee I'm getting those guys later.
Right.
What I can guarantee right here, right now, is that I can get, Fournette, or I can get one of these guys that, let's be honest, the industry ranks higher, and the industry is not always perfect, but there's a reason he's ranked 8th,
Right.
Well, yeah. I guess my concern comes with the wording of the question. He's saying like a second tier running back by committee. So I'm not looking at like Fournette or even down into our 12 or 10 role, of running backs. When I hear what his question is, I'm looking at, LeGarrette Blount, Adrian Peterson, not so much Carlos Hyde, but Joe Mixon, Tevin Coleman, Isaiah Crowell. Like, that's the guys that I think he's talking about. That really not second group, but third group of backs that are hit or miss. Versus, and like I said, the examples that he gave are Bryant and
Thomas.
I mean, those are 2 guys that we have in the top 11 wide receivers. You know what I mean? So, like, if that's the case, now you're not really talking about second tier, running backs. You're talking about like third tier running backs versus really top tier wide receivers. And I think it's silly.
I don't agree with that. I think guys, maybe in his wording, But guys around that area, around the 11 and 12 receiver, are going to be available around the same time as guys that are like 17, 18, 19, 20 and running back.
Absolutely.
It's pretty good wording. It's just in comparison to our rankings, maybe not, but the wording as far as it goes, as far as if we look at our rankings and we have guys like maybe like Amari Cooper, Alshon Jeffrey, those guys, even Allen Robinson, they're going to be available around the same time as Joe Mixon. So then it's a toss up. Are you going to take? Say you? I'll ask you personally, Rocco. I won't do Allen Robinson because you're not going to take anybody. But say like Alshon or Jarvis Landry or Brandon Cooks around that area, and Joe Mixon is available, and you only have one good running back.
Well, with that exact scenario, I'm gonna go Mixon more than likely.
I think
that's what the question is then.
Right. We're throwing names around and guessing at what he's trying to say. I think the point is, if you took a running back in the first, and now you're here in the second, and there was a big run, and you're way further down on your running back rankings than you probably ideally want to be, but you could get a guy on your receiver rankings that's maybe even 10 spots higher at receiver than your running back. What do? I still take the back.
Yep, me too.
You said Peterson, Blunt, Crowell. All three of those guys have double-digit touchdown potential.
Right.
I mean,
all
three of them. Right.
Okay, so I keep going back to our league and where I'm drafting. I mean, if that's what I'm left with after I take my first two picks, we'll say, because at 8 and 9, obviously it's different than at 1 and 16.
Your scenario is a little different.
My scenario is a little different, but at the same time, like it depends on, at least for me, it depends on my personal rankings and where we're actually looking at running backs. You know what I mean? Yes, it's nice to say that if it's Peterson, Hyde, and Blunt that I'm talking about, that I'm looking at, yeah, I'm probably going to go with a running back. But if we're all the way down in the 25s at that point, and I'm looking at top 10 potential receivers, that I think you have a hard time passing that up.
Can't make you be right, dude.
Hey, before we move on, we should mention here too, while we're sort of talking in this realm, Dan checks in on YouTube, and I think that he didn't really direct this at Rocco, but I think he really is. Don't forget about Chris Ivory in Jacksonville. They like him down there, and he's supposedly in a lot better shape this year.
I feel like Dan is trying to get me going right now.
Like him and Jared Goff are in great shape, both of them. Like worlds too.
Dan is going to be the one that makes me lose my cool this week. Congratulations, Dan.
All right, so I mean, the frustrating thing with this kind of question, just to wrap this discussion up, is like, it obviously depends on you. It depends on your league and the room. And I think I'm going to touch on this in a few weeks when we do strategy, but that's what fantasy's become. Like, it's not a research thing anymore. I could dedicate my life to researching, and there's nothing I'm going to find that somebody else can't find in 8 seconds on Google. So at this point, I think successful fantasy owners are those who are smart at reading the room, know what they might be able to get next round, and you got to pay attention to your settings in your league. So it's hard to say. If you're steadfast, like Deal and myself are, I'm taking the running back every single time. I mean, I don't care about Des Bryant. So long story short, do you, boo-boo. Let's delete that. We got to delete that. All right.
No, we're not deleting it. And now you and Dan are on my list today.
We're live.
Congratulations.
I think we should add that to our bumper. You do you, boo boo. Add that right after Frank Walker Law.
All right, guys. So our next question is a great one. I love this question from James in Minneapolis. Look at the far reach of the Goons here. We have a huge following out in Minnesota. So we actually do have several listens from Minnesota every week, and we love it.
Yep.
James from Minneapolis, he wants to know something about what's become almost crazy enough a forgotten position in fantasy, which is the quarterback. And we got 2 questions about quarterbacks here. So our first one, with the insane depth the league currently has at quarterback, when are you going to select yours? And he wanted to specify, we're just talking standard, one quarterback, 10 or 12 teams, nothing fancy, nothing crazy in your scoring. When are you going to target quarterback in those leagues?
Late, really late.
When you say late, I know your fantasy brain, and it's always late. You're not taking Aaron Rodgers. You will own Aaron Rodgers never, unless it's a stupid trade. But so when you say late, are you saying when your running back receiver starters are filled up, or are you talking 12th round late?
Probably after 12th round. I am so willing to take a Blake Bortles or an Andy Dalton or a Ryan Tannehill, knowing that I have all those other guys, because unless you're in a league full of idiots that draft Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger and start one quarterback, if you're in a league like that, you're going to win by default because their team sucks. So you can draft whoever you want. Draft Joe Flacco, because you're going to win that league.
Careful.
All right. Joe Flacco might have been a stretch. You might lose the league if you have all the other best positions. But, unless you have a team full of idiots, if you're in a normal 12-team league, if somebody takes a backup quarterback, it's going to be really late. So you're still getting a top 12 quarterback. Worst case, you're getting a top 15 quarterback on your list, no matter what, along with the other positions that you can add, like depth at running back, because you are going to miss some, or depth at receiver because you're going to wait. If you're me, you're going to wait till the at least third, probably fourth, maybe fifth round to get a receiver. So you have a chance to take some more chances if you wait and take a guy like a Blake Bortles or Ryan Tannehill, the guys around that area. So I feel 100% confident in taking you. If you wait to take him if you're in a 10-team league, you might get Jameis Winston, who it wouldn't be that shocking if he led the league in scoring this year. So it's worth that risk to me.
Yeah, I'm going to jump and piggyback on what you're saying. Especially in a one quarterback league, I wouldn't even hesitate to wait as long as you're saying. Because for me, I'm looking at my rankings and our consensus right now. There are 18 quarterbacks that I wouldn't even bat an eye about being my starting quarterback.
No, not at all.
So, you're playing in a 10-teamer, a standard 10-teamer, even a 12-team. There's still going to be some selection available 12th round or later at the quarterback position where you're going to feel comfortable about who you're putting out there every week. Now, there's some risk associated with that, obviously, but you really can't go into doomsday prep and say, oh man, I ended up with Andy Dalton, but what if he gets hurt again? You really you can't play like that. You have to be willing to take the chance. And then what if he's the potential MVP candidate, Andy Dalton, that we saw? You know what I mean? So there's risk and reward. Now, in a 2-quarterback situation, I'll tell you exactly.
It's different.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking about jumping in is the 9th round. Because at that point, you've got all of your starters at your main positions that you need to be worried about at the running back and wide receiver. You've got some depth established there as well. So I'm okay 9th round, 10th round jumping into the party. Now, understand that I got burnt with this last year because a guy that I liked in Carson Palmer really boned me last year. He was awful, and I felt more than comfortable starting him. So, there's that risk that's associated with it. So, you have to understand that going in, there's a little bit of risk, but the reward may be worth it. And I think you have to be willing to take that chance to find some fantasy glory.
Right.
Let's keep this in mind for everybody who is kind of like us and looks at the stats and looks at all these things. In a 12 quarterback, standard league, there were 13 quarterbacks last year that threw for at least 4,000 yards. You know what I mean? Obviously, you got your high end Drew Brees at 5,200, but the difference between Aaron Rodgers at 5th place and Eli Manning in 13th place is 400 yards stretched over 16 games. So let's not think that there aren't at least one starter for every guy. And then, somebody can probably take it back up early, and you can still get a 4,000-yard passer. So yes, in a standard league, I'm going to hold on for as long as possible and let the people around me draft way too high on Rodgers and Luck, and I'm going to get a comparable guy in the 11th, 12th, 13th round. I don't want to say I disagree with the 2 quarterback situation, but definitely keep your eye on it, because if the run starts, you don't want to wind up with starting Dak Prescott and Carson Palmer.
Right, and that's how I got Palmer last year.
You know what I mean? Because that's why it burned you, because you did wait, and then the run started, and then you're like, oh, now I have to make a decision.
Right.
So keep your eye on that for sure, but definitely later than maybe I would have used to think about quarterbacks. Definitely later than at least later than the 7th round.
Yeah, I'm not going to – I'll get into this. I'm just going to introduce the next question here because my answer kind of rolls into one for these two. Our second quarterback question, multi-quarterback leagues are finally gaining a little steam. Personally, Deal and I argue about this a lot. I'm a fan of the small league with big rosters. I love it. My leagues that I commission, and that's including our big one where the 4 of us are half of the league, are 8 teams. And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, that's stupid, everybody's got a super team. Well, no, because we have 13-man starting lineups, not 9. We start 16 quarterbacks, not 10.
Right.
So, that I think that adds a lot of challenge to leagues. And I've heard of leagues that actually use a super flex where, that's any offensive player. That's catching some steam. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but because what I've found is it's generally a quarterback anyway. So, anyhow, kind of to go with this, David in Lakeland, Florida, he sent us one. I've heard you guys talk about being in multiple quarterback leagues before. I think we mentioned it a bit last year, and this is his first year trying it. How much, if at all, does it change your draft strategy or rankings when you know that you need to start double the quarterbacks than what you're used to? So I think what he's saying is instead of 10, he's still in a 10-team league, but they're going to 2. So now they're starting 20. So across the room here, we all play in both multiple quarterback and single quarterback leagues. So mentally, as you approach your draft, what's different for you?
I think what Rocco said is important. Like, you have to kind of keep it in the back of your mind, because I think over the last couple of years, we've all become really comfortable with the fact that there are a lot of quarterbacks that we would be happy to start. But the reality of it is you're always going to have those 1 or 2 owners that by the time you get to round 10, you're going to look down and say, oh, wow, somebody has 3 quarterbacks on their roster already.
Right.
It's just inevitably going to happen. So I think that in a 2-quarterback league, you need to have a solid as a rock option as one of your quarterbacks. I don't want 2 guys that every week I'm worrying about, like, is the matchup awful? Is he going to be bad because of injury history or something like that? I'm willing to take a chance on one of those slots and kind of play that rotationally and pick up from the waiver wire as I need. But one of those spots for me personally, I want to be pretty confident that I'm not really going to have to change that spot other than a bye week. So with that in mind, I'm just cognizant of what's happening with other owners in my league. Does a guy have 3 quarterbacks? Does somebody else have 2? Do I feel like somebody has 1, but their roster is shaping up that they're probably going to grab one after me if I don't at this point? And I don't really like the guys that are going to be left if I miss out on, say, Jameis Winston. So you just have to keep those things in mind. You have to pay a little bit more attention to it than I think you would in a standard 1 quarterback.
For me, go ahead, bro. For me, it doesn't change anything at all about my rankings unless you do a big board, which I don't. It's just not my draft style, and so far my draft style's worked for me, so I'm gonna keep going with it. So unless you just do purely best player available, which that's okay too if you do, but it doesn't change anything for my rankings. And as far as my draft strategy, if I start 2, I will start a little bit earlier. But for my second one, I'm going to wait later than I would have for my first one and my other one, because I love to have depth at running back. And honestly, if as long as you're in an active league, if you have depth, you can trade later. Like I say that knowing that I didn't draft I didn't draft much for quarterback last year, and I ended up in the championship starting Rodgers and Russell Wilson. So you can get those guys later. Stock up and try trading. Unless you don't have an active league, I'll say this for a lot of topics, stock up and trade well, because you can trade guys for a better quarterback or a better whatever position you need if you get some depth. So don't worry about, oh man, I got to fill out my starters. Just get depth at something and either back yourself up for a bad decision or back yourself up to trade somebody else that made other bad decisions.
Yeah, I'm on board with South a little bit here. Slightly earlier than I would for a 10-team, 12-team, one quarterback league. Is where I'm looking to grab my first one, just to make sure I have a sure-handed, absolute guarantee I can start this guy for 16 weeks and not have to worry about it. Because when you do the whole quarterback by committee thing, which is a thing, it's not something I like to do, and it's not something that's fun, because you're constantly trying to play the battles of matchups and different things like that. I like to have one guy for sure that's going to be a lock to start every week that he's playing, and then after that, I would like to wait a little while, and maybe grab two guys that I'll use in a committee approach, later on. I think that's the best way to handle this 2-quarterback league or multiple quarterback league when you're starting, is grab the one maybe slightly earlier than you would, a round, 2 rounds earlier than you would in a standard league, and then just give yourself depth options later on.
Yeah, all right. So I said I was going to kind of touch on both my feelings on questions 3 and 4 here. I'm usually with you guys. Again, and I've been clear in like our text outside of this, and I'm struggling this year because I have a great feel, obviously, for the league and all that, but so much of what my research is pointing me towards is against like everything I believe as a fantasy owner. Like I'm usually running back, and then we'll figure things out. And I think that my love for what I've already talked about, that group of 20s in the running backs, and my real distaste for the teens at quarterback, I can totally see myself being that. I'm not taking Aaron Rodgers in the second round, but I feel like I'm going to own Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck a lot this year. And it's because of my belief in my ability to hit in that mid-tier at running back and receiver. So, South, you actually 5 minutes ago, you said there's guys I'm happy starting. I don't want to be okay with my team. I don't want to just be happy starting guys. I want to look at my team and say, all right, there's 25 standard points, period, every week. And in our scoring system, I'm hitting 30 every week with Aaron Rodgers. And more importantly, there's the upside of why Deal beat me in our championship last year, in spite of the fact that I had possibly the greatest fantasy team ever assembled, because that Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson combo, I don't think I'm wrong. They hit like 95 points between the two of them.
That was a lot.
So, when you're saying, yeah, I can totally win a league with, Andy Dalton and Ben Roethlisberger and a multi-quarterback, yeah, maybe you can. But if I put up, you're not beating me with those two. I put up 200 points last year on Deal in the championship, and I lost by 45 because his quarterbacks went nuts. So I kind of think usually I'm with you guys. This year I see myself going earlier. And the reason I kind of say that and go with it is it's what we've been preaching. We preached it all last offseason. You're going to hear us over the next 4 weeks talk about it like crazy. You cannot marry yourself to one idea, and this is who I am and this is what I do. I'm going to be willing to change myself for this year because when I look at my rankings, I see league championship in the 20s at running back and in the top 5 at quarterback. So I'm going to chase that. I'm not going to just do what I've always done and end up with a team that I'm not sure can compete. So all that being said, even the one quarterback team, I'm going to be that team that has a little bit earlier of a quarterback. And I totally understand that's bucking the industry standard and everybody preaches, be the last team to take a quarterback. Yeah, maybe. But if I'm getting you by 10 a week there, you better hope you drafted better than me later. You know what I'm saying with that depth running back stuff. So
yeah, I agree.
For me, I love what you said, Deal, about the rankings. I don't care if you start 9 quarterbacks. Why would that change your rankings? That shouldn't touch your rankings.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
your strategy should matter. I mean, if you're going to be the last guy to take a quarterback, don't let everybody else already have two before you start. So that's kind of what we're going. All right, shifting gears here a little bit. We're done talking about quarterback. I love the next question because it shows me this dude's in an active league where owners are discussing trades even before the draft. And that's what makes this fun. Nobody wants to just pick a team and then not know anybody and not trash talk and things like that. But, personal note, if you're in a recurring league with the same guys, I suggest to have your draft lottery way early. Our league, we do it over NFL draft weekend. And then there's about 2 weeks where guys pick their slots. We all knew our draft position by mid-May.
Yeah.
And that's fun because as you're preparing, you can kind of, all right, I'm drafting 7th. I have no visions of having, Le'Veon Bell on my team. It's not going to happen. I'm not getting him. So it helps you do that. But you can also do things like this where Rob from Harrisburg is going to ask, is it wise to give away your first-round pick for multiple picks in future rounds? If so, what should I ask for? And in context, he wants us to know he has the number 2 pick and will most likely be giving away David Johnson, which is a huge deal. I'm going to take the lead on this one because I have personal experience from this. Just last year in our league, I had the number 2 pick, and I offered to all you guys, listen, here's number 2. I don't want your first in return. What can I get? I ended up moving the number 2 pick for someone's 2nd, 3rd, and 5th rounders. So I missed out on – I didn't draft till 11th. But after that, I mean, tell me I didn't crush that draft. You know what I mean? So the fact that I was able to have 7 players in the first 5 rounds, it just sets you up for so much success later. Now, that was an extreme scenario. I think personally I got a little more than I should have gotten in that scenario. But personally, I wouldn't be scared. Listen, for the billionth time, trust yourself. Whether you trade up, you stay put, or you trade back, you got to hit your draft picks, no matter where they are. You got to hit. Now, if you trade up, you better hit later because you're giving up some depth. But I don't mind moving that number 2 pick for mid-round picks anyhow.
Yeah.
Because you're set up with so much depth that if you get a guy that goes down or a guy that disappoints, it's okay. I have somebody else.
As much as it seems like it's terrible not drafting number 2 overall and not getting a guy in the first round, it really you hit the nail on the head with you have 7 picks in the first 5 rounds. Like that's 2 more than everybody else. You know what I mean? Right. So you have 2 more picks higher ranked than anybody else. Okay, so that's one way to look at it.
And real quick, I'll let you finish, but I just no. But for the whole draft, I'm drafting like that. You're thinking 7 and 5, but then I'm taking my 8th player when you all taking your 6th. I'm taking my 9th. So for literally, once we catch up in the 5th round, for the remaining 13 rounds of that draft, I'm 2 players ahead of everyone in the league.
Yeah.
So while I don't get it now, it helps that I ended up getting Ezekiel Elliott 11th. You know what I mean? So I did get an elite talent. But, let's say I didn't. It still helps that for an entire draft, I'm 2 steps ahead of everyone. I was able to take Cam Newton. Didn't work that well, but he was the pre-ranked number 1 quarterback. Right. I was able to take Greg Olsen when no one else was even thinking tight end. But I grabbed him because I already had 4 backs. Right. So 2 rounds ahead for a whole draft is a nice thing.
The reverse side of that, if you do make that trade and you're the guy trading for the number 2 pick, you better nail those picks because you're not picking, you're leaving the first 5 rounds with 3 picks.
3 players, right?
You know what I mean? So if it's not that it can't work, but you better make sure that your 2, like in that case, if you're trading for 2 and let's say you're already you already had your own number 5, you better be running back, and you better ride those 2 for the entire season, and you better take the safe 2 running backs at that point too. Maybe at that point you avoid Lev Bell, whereas before you would have taken him because the injury history is there. You have to nail those picks if you're going to make that trade.
Look, I don't want to discount what you're saying because it's true, but who cares? You know what I mean? Like if you're moving out of that slot, who cares what the other guy does? I think
I'm saying it for both parties in the trade.
Right. But like the gist of this is like, should I give up David Johnson to have more picks? And the answer is Yes.
Yes.
You absolutely should. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like David Johnson is probably the most surefire thing in fantasy as far as running backs go. Probably any players go this season, other than maybe Lev Bell if he stays away from the pipe
But
and doesn't get hurt.
the fact that you said if
Right.
means David Johnson's the safer player. There's no if.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm saying, like, yes, you are giving up the cream of the crop, but you'd hit the nail on the head. Like, you have the ability to make a mistake potentially by taking a risk. And if you hit on one of those risks that you take, you're hitting a home run and winning the league, basically. But if you take a Cam Newton like you did last year and you strike out on it, big deal. You're still the best team in the league by a lot. You know what I mean? So you've got to take those extra picks. The fact that, in this scenario, you'd probably have 7 picks in the top 40, top 45 at worst. Yep. Oh my gosh, sign me up.
I left that draft and told people outside of the league my team, and nobody believes you. You're a liar. There's no, like, my backs were Zeke, Shady, and Freeman. My quarterbacks were Cam and Breeze. Like, you're lying. Stop. No, I'm not. I got 7 picks in the first 5 rounds.
Inevitably, somebody's going to do something too in those first couple rounds that is going to have everybody scratching their head. So another really good player is going to fall to you where they really shouldn't have. So, there's going to be hidden reward on top of the reward of having all those picks.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'll add a little bit. I was thinking about this yesterday and today. Well, guess what I was doing, South?
Building the fence?
Yeah, I was building this fence here, and I was thinking about this. And I guess it depends for me. It really does. I want David Johnson on every single team. And for me, what it depends on is what you get in return. And in every league, it doesn't matter what league you're in, you either have a 1-8, 1-10, or 1-12 chance of winning it. So how do you hedge your bets? Do you hedge them by saying, I have almost as close as you can get a lock in David Johnson, or I can start building my team later? And the reason I start by building on later, and you might end up saying I hedge my bets by taking David Johnson and knowing I'm ahead already. But the way you can hedge your bets and the way that I visualize it is you have a chance to draft number 2, but you got that chance. Like, you could be drafting 8, 10, or 12. So you could be at the end of the draft. There's somebody already there naturally. So it's not like, oh, that guy has no shot of winning. So if you're just going to move back a little bit past them, but then pick up a bunch of picks, it's worth it, certainly, because somebody has to draft at the end of the first round anyways. And if you're like 2 picks after that person, but you get 2 more picks than that person, you're ahead already. So it just depends on how you're hedging your bets and knowing that somebody has to pick at the end of the first round. Maybe you're going to be close to that, but you get a bunch of extra picks, so it's a bonus.
Yeah, for me, the reason I took it last year was I just trust myself to be smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I knew what I was giving up. It ended up being Julio Jones, but it might have been DJ or Antonio Brown or whatever that person wanted. I knew what I was giving up, but I say, you're going to give me an extra 2, 3, and a 5. There's no way that with my research, I can't turn that into a major advantage. Right. And I listen, I think we can all agree that the picks hit more than most years they would. Right. The guys I took, it just ended up being right. But even if, like, I love what South said, because it was the reason I did it. I figured if I miss twice, I'm still right there with everybody. You know what I mean? So I trust myself to not miss twice.
Right.
Yeah. I think the important thing to realize here too is that, like, being that all 4 of us have experience with this, as this similar trade did go down last year in our own league, we all left the draft thinking the same exact thing, and that was that Miles was going to run away with this league. And honestly, Deal, you could say, congratulations for winning it, but without trades, that would not have happened. You know what I mean? So
right.
we can look at that and say that did work successfully. Obviously the owner matters and the draft picks matter, but the layout of the trade does work in your favor because you're starting so far ahead.
All right, so let's move on here. We haven't really talked about individual players, and Dan from Pittsburgh has sent us 2 questions regarding specific players, one about a rookie runner and the other about a borderline receiver one. So we kind of already hit on this guy, but the first question, do you see Leonard Fournette breaking out as the leader of the Jacksonville backfield? So we get to talk a little more about Chris Ivory. Super. Or are they going to end up running it by committee with those 3 guys and make him only a serviceable draft pick?
I can't get enough Leonard Fournette this year.
Nice.
I really can't. I've got him ranked number 8 right now. Consensus-wise, we've got him at number 8. I wouldn't be surprised if he creeps up another spot or 2 for me by the time I get to draft time. And the more that I'm hearing, the more that I'm seeing, the more that I'm reading, is that every coach in Jacksonville has said, listen, we cannot let Blake Bortles throw the ball 600 times. And we've got a special human being who is, in a lot of cases, more man than just about any other human. You watch this guy run, he's an absolute beast. So I get that he's a rookie. I get that there's a little bit of a transition period into the game, but he's playing at the one position where you can afford to be a step or 2 behind maybe in your playbook, because you just do what comes natural, what your instincts tell you to. And there have been very few college running backs who have shown better instincts than Leonard Fournette. I think this is a guy who has the potential to have a better rookie campaign than Zeke did last year.
Yikes.
I don't know that the offensive line is going to be able to hold a candle to what, Zeke had in Dallas, but I think that Fournette is a better runner than Zeke by a lot. So I don't know. I mean, I can't buy in enough on him. And if there is any kind of hesitant, part on the coaching staff in Jacksonville, it's only going to last a game or 2 until they see, like, hey, this is a man among boys right here. Like, let's just give this guy the ball.
South, what about the rookie wall?
It does concern me a little bit, but not so much when you look at Leonard Fournette.
I'm so glad I threw that in there.
That made me so happy.
Listen, I said before that, to keep an eye on Fournette just because he's a rookie and just because it's Jacksonville. But I love him. I mean, you can't not love him. He runs like, I mean, I know it's against college kids, but, he was a college kid too. So he's running on him like he was a varsity player against JV guys, and that's when he's playing Alabama and Auburn. And, we're not talking about, games against, second-rate schools. He's playing in the SEC. So he's such a natural, talented running back that even though the line is a little bit worse in Jacksonville than in Dallas, the weapons are there on the outside that teams are going to have to play them honest. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of 9 stack boxes, so that bodes well for him as well. So, yeah, Fournette should be as close to a slam dunk type running back, even as a rookie, as you can get.
It reminds me a little bit of the Zeke thing last year where some people were saying, hey, he's a rookie, and they do have Darren McFadden, they do have Alfred Moore. They're not Ezekiel Elliott. Like, TJ Yeldon's okay. Chris Ivory runs hard. They're not Leonard Fournette. Like there's a very, very clear class difference in the ability of the athlete, how hard they run, their attitude, and not to mention the draft capital. They took the guy 4th, just like Zeke Elliott went. It's not the timeshare with Chris Ivory. Like, it's not. I don't think there's any way this is a committee situation. There's no way.
Yeah,
he'll absolutely finish top 10 in carries in the league.
I'm not positive about that, but
I am. Write it down.
I will. I don't think there's any way that it ends up being a timeshare, though. I agree with everything you guys said, except for top in the league in carries.
Top 10.
Probably don't agree
Top
with
10,
that.
I said.
But anyways, I don't agree with that, so we'll just skip over that. But one thing I will add to it, if you are in a league that drafts before the 3rd week of the preseason, quit it. Wait so you can see some guys in the preseason. Like I keep talking to guys and they're asking me questions, and they're like drafting in the beginning of August. Like, what are you doing with your life? make better decisions. That's what I'll add for all the people that have asked me that question, which have been a bunch. Draft later in the preseason so you can see some guys play some football.
All right, so the second player that we'll talk about, Dan also asked, do you see a Jarvis Landry improvement or regression this year? Could he become a middle-round pick who ends up putting out a top-5 output? And this was a guy we argued a lot about last year. What he ends up with the past 2 years, 2015, he had 110 catches for 1,157 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last year, 94 catches, 1,136 yards and 4 touchdowns. What do you guys think happens with Jarvis?
I'm going to jump in first because I love the Dolphins.
That's your boy.
That's my boy. Now, Jarvis Landry to this point, he's good, but he is what he is. Okay. Honestly, the touchdown numbers are what screams to me the most. Maybe it's because Miami has trouble getting in the end zone. Maybe it's because he doesn't have that big a frame. And, when you do get down in the red zone, the targets might not be there necessarily. But you're going to get 90 to 100 catches and 1,100 yards. I mean, that's what it is. If you could, I know you can't do this, but if you can guarantee me a spike in touchdown production, then sure, Jarvis Landry would climb my boards. But they don't score that often in Miami like that. And when they get down close, he's not their number one red zone target. So, two things that don't, bode well for him. He's got to catch a 20-yard touchdown or more in order to get into the end zone. That's not ideal for a number one receiver.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the cop out here and just basically tell you, just expect what he's done the last 2 years. I think that's just, as Rocco said, who he is. Now, what Rocco won't tell you is that the reason why those touchdown numbers aren't going up is because Jay Ajayi is going to eat all
the J
of that
train
touchdown action up.
J train.
He's going to absolutely eat it up.
Is it possible to mute the moderator?
I'm not.
No. Yep. Miles is eating it up. Listen,
eating them up.
The only thing
dumb.
The only thing that can improve Jarvis Landry's stock for me, and this is going to sound ridiculously crazy, maybe not to the guys in this room right now, but to
don't even
listening.
mention Chad Henne.
Nope. Matt Moore. If Matt Moore is the starting quarterback for the Dolphins for any extended period of time, he's looked way better than Ryan Tannehill has at any point. So that's the only thing that could really improve his stock, but it's not going to happen. So he just is what he is.
I didn't know if somehow you were going to sneak Chad Henne in on that comment. Think somehow that was going to help him out.
Well, you never know.
I don't have a lot to add other than I will go back to what we were saying earlier. If you can get a guy like Jarvis Landry to add on to those Joe Mixon type guys instead of drafting Des Bryant, then I'm all over that. If that's your option, Joe Mixon plus Jarvis Landry, or Des Bryant versus I don't even know. Yeah, I can't think of somebody to add in there, but a guy further down the mid-20s.
Matt Forte is a good one. Definitely go with Landry.
You mean the workhorse back in the Jets backfield?
Yikes. All right.
Yo, you're looking to get punched in the throat today by either me or Dio. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I love that I'm the only one to not threaten you with a punch here so far. But
well, we still have time.
All right, our last question here. And this is a great one, and I'll say whoever out there owns the correct answer to this question, you're very likely to still be playing meaningful games in late December, because this is kind of the jewel of all fantasy questions. You'll probably hear everybody get asked this on any kind of podcast like this, or even the shows on NFL Network and yada yada. Trey in Frederick, Maryland asks, I haven't won my main league championship since 2009, and it's getting old. I bet it is. I keep missing out on gem sleepers, and it's costing me. Who do you guys see being this year's Jordan Howard or Jay Ajayi by being either a late-round pick or even a waiver pickup that could get me back to the top of my league? Everybody's always digging for that hidden player. We don't know who it is, and he ends up carrying you, because if you hit on your first, second, third, yada, yada rounds, but then you also get an RB1 in the 14th round, of course you're ahead of everybody. So, without giving away too much information, seeing how we're all in the same league, who are you targeting late to try to get you over the hump?
Nobody wants to answer.
No, I'll go first. No, I have one. I have one that I've started seeing his name. He's been kind of a feeling of mine. I think it may pick up some steam by the time people draft, but I really like Kareem Hunt out in Kansas City.
Yeah.
We have him consensus number 38 at running back. There is nothing special about Spencer Ware at all. There is really nothing special about Alex Smith in the passing game. Tyreek Hill's very special, but, it's a matter of can Alex get him the ball. But, listen, Andy Reid has this stigma of being throw. And he is to a point, but you also look around at Andy Reid coach teams all the way back to like 2000 with the Eagles. And he's always had a fantasy relevant running back, always. From Deuce Staley to Brian Westbrook to Shady McCoy to Jamal Charles to even the aforementioned Spencer Ware. He's always had a guy that you can kind of count on. And I don't love Spencer Ware. I don't think he's that good. And this is a team that wants to compete for a Super Bowl. You got to put your best players out there. Kareem Hunt as a rookie, he's an explosive, powerful back out of Toledo. I think he's going to be that guy that no one's going to draft him high because Spencer Ware is going to start the season. But then just like we saw with Jordan Howard last year, people drafted Jeremy Langford pretty high. They liked him. Just like Spencer Ware. It's kind of that same kind of guy. And by midseason, I think we're going to see once Kareem Hunt gets a lock on that playbook, he's going to take that job. And you're going to end up getting a guy with a ton of volume that you barely had to pay anything for, maybe even a waiver pickup in a lot of leagues. So I would target Kareem Hunt or at least keep an eye on him through the first couple weeks and see kind of how involved he is, kind of what Spencer Ware looks like, which is probably going to be Spencer Ware doing Spencer Ware things, which isn't that special. So, keep an eye on Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I got real similar lines there. Guy I'm looking to keep an eye on is Jamal Williams. I've been pretty clear that I'm not real high on Ty Montgomery. So, and I just watching film on Jamal Williams and seeing and reading, it's a typical preseason stuff you read about how amazing he looks. But from what I've seen of him, at BYU and then going forward, what we're reading about him, I like him to have potential to be that guy that maybe doesn't go drafted, but you're looking to get pretty quickly.
I feel like we're all in the same boat here. I got a very similar situation. Just a guy that I really personally like is Samaje Perine. I'm not a Rob Kelly fan. I don't think that anybody is really a Rob Kelly fan.
I love Fat Rob.
Yeah, you like him because his name is Fat Rob. I mean, let's just
I really do think he's pretty good.
The way I look at it is Perine is really a special talent, and I think that gets overshadowed by the fact that he was playing next to Joe Mixon, who's another very special talent. I think the guy is an absolute workhorse between the tackles. I think that's going to show up. We already know what Kirk Cousins is, and we already know what that offense is going to be in terms of the passing game. Whoever is lining up in that backfield is not going to see a whole lot of stack boxes. They're not going to see a lot of, 9 men down in the box. And he's just a workhorse beast of a running back. So you're talking between the tackles, goal line, he has a real chance to be, a deep sleeper in this season's fantasy. And it's not a guy that you have to really think about drafting too highly or maybe at all, but a guy that you're definitely going to want to keep your eye on.
Such deep sleep that he may never even wake up.
Listen, you mentioned at the top of this that if somebody has the answer to this, congratulations. I've got the answer to this.
I knew you would.
All right. And Deal, I should have went after you because I'm going to kind of squash on what you said a little bit. The answer to this question is Ty Montgomery.
Don't say Ty Montgomery.
Ty Montgomery is the answer to this question. All right?
Don't send Dwight.
Here's a guy who midway through last season was transitioned to the running back position. They still tinkered around a little bit too much and pushed guys in there that really had no business being in there. And then after the fact, everybody from Aaron Rodgers to Mike McCarthy and their third cousins twice removed came out and said, what were we thinking? Ty Montgomery is pretty good at this thing, and he's still just kind of figuring it out. Green Bay, I don't think anybody here is going to argue, is one of the more explosive offenses in the league. When they're clicking on all cylinders, you're putting a guy in there who is a versatile threat to catch the ball and run the ball, 6 yards per carry last year when they did let him run the ball. And by all accounts, they're going to commit to letting him do it a lot more this year. He's productive when he's in there. So he's going to give you points both ways. He's severely undervalued by a lot of people at this point. Even us, I think, on our rankings, we've got him No. I mean, we've got him down in like the 30s. This is a guy who could very easily be a top 20 back to a top 15 back based on his versatility, and similar to what we talked about with the Atlanta backs, an offense that is getting a lot of snaps. They're very productive. I love Ty Montgomery, especially deeper for the value that he's got on him right now. You could win a league here and there by sneaking him onto your roster and just eating up all those points.
I don't know where here or there is.
Well, it depends on how many drafts you have.
Yeah, you better have a lot to win one with him.
Can I just say this?
I'll let you know this year.
It looks so strange seeing them hand the ball off to a guy wearing a number 88 jersey.
Yeah,
It just looks weird. I can't get on board with it. It just looks weird.
I will add, I know you said we're only allowed one, but I'm going to sneak this one in. Return of the Mac.
I wanted to do it for you so bad. I think if I didn't love Frank the Tank so much, Return of the Mac would have made an appearance for sure. I had it all queued up on my phone to play the music and everything.
Keep your eye on Marlon Mack. I'm just saying.
All right. Well, hopefully one of those 4 hits if I draft that guy. I don't really care about you 3. So
thanks.
All right. That's going to do it here, guys, for this edition of the Football Goons podcast. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. And again, we're asking you to get active for us out there on the interwebs, whether it be through social media or leaving us those rankings, those 5-star ratings on iTunes and the various other platforms we're on. It really goes a long way to helping us reach the masses. We're trying to take this thing over. We can't see any reason we shouldn't be able to take over and change this industry. We need your help to do it. So just to let you know what's coming here, we're going to be releasing version 3 of the consensus fantasy rankings on footballgoons.com this weekend as the calendar turns to July, and we continue to refine our thoughts on the upcoming season and get ready for the next 4 weeks of the podcast, where we're going to walk you through each position of our rankings, debate kind of our differences, our deviations on why we're thinking what we're thinking. Basically, if last year's any indication, we're going to treat this as an opportunity to kind of gang up on Rocco and see how red we can make that face go a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. So, as always, we thank you for your time. You can find us on footballgoons.com, facebook.com/footballgoons, and on the Twitter @footballgoons. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube to catch notifications of when we're going live, and you can see our smiling faces instead of just listening to the audio, because let's be honest, we are 4 very good-looking men. Thanks again for the listen, folks, and as always, we'll catch you next time.